hauling winches. He guessed that they would reach the low town at the mouth of the mine before the fast sun of early spring had moved the width of 2 hands. They took the south road, the mountains behind them. They crossed the sinuous stone bridge over the Tidat, the water below them still smelling of its mother glacier. The plain spread before them, farmsteads and low towns and meadows green with new wheat. Trees were already pushing forth new growth. It wouldn't be many weeks before the lush spring took root, grabbing at the daylight that the winter stole away. The messenger told him what he could, but it was little enough, and before they had reached the halfway point, a wind rose waffling in Biitrah's ears and making conversation impossible. The closer they came, the better he recalled these particular mines. They weren't the first that House Daikani had leased from the Khai. Those had been the ones with 6 ventilation shafts. These had 4. And slowly, more slowly than it once had, his mind recalled the details, spreading the problem before him like something written on slate or carved from stone. By the time they reached the first outbuildings of the low town, his fingers had grown numb, his nose had started to run from the cold. He had 4 different guesses as to what might have gone wrong, and 10 questions in mind, whose answers would determine whether he was correct. He went directly to the mouth of the mine, forgetting to stop for even bread and tea. Hiami sat by the brazier, knotting a scarf from silk thread, and listening to a slave boy sing old tunes of the empire. Almost forgotten emperors loved and fought, lost, won, and died, in the high, rich voice. Poets and their slave spirits, the Andat, waged their private battles sometimes with deep sincerity and beauty, sometimes with bedroom humor and bawdy rhymes, but all of them ancient. She couldn't stand to hear anything written after the Great War that had destroyed those faraway palaces and broken those song-recalled lands. The new songs were all about the battles of the Khaim, 3 brothers who held claim to the name of Khai. 2 would die, 1 would forget his name and doom his own sons to another cycle of blood. Whether they were laments for the fallen or celebrations of the victors, she hated them. They weren't songs that comforted her, and she didn't knot scarves unless she needed comfort. A servant came in, a young girl in austere robes almost the pale of mourning, and took a ritual pose announcing a guest of status equal to Hiami's.
"Ida'an," the servant girl said, "daughter to the Khai Machi." "I know my husband's sister," Hiami snapped, not pausing in her handwork. "You needn't tell me the sky is blue." The servant girl flushed, her hands fluttering toward 3 different poses at once and achieving none of them. Hiami regretted her words and put down the nodding, taking a gentle pose of command. "Bring her here, and something comfortable for her to sit on." The servant took a pose of acknowledgement, grateful, it seemed, to know what response to make, and scampered off. And then Ida'an was there. Hardly 20, she could have been one of Hiami's own daughters. Not a beauty, but it took a practiced eye to know that. Her hair, pitch dark, was pleated with strands of silver and gold. Her eyes were touched with paints, her skin made finer and paler than it really was by powder. Her robes, blue silk embroidered with gold, flattered her hips and the swell of her breasts. To a man or a younger woman, Ida'an might have seemed the loveliest woman in the city. Hiami knew the difference between talent and skill, but of the pair, she had greater respect for skill, so the effect was much the same. They each took poses of greeting, subtly different to mark Ida'an's blood relation to the Khai and Hiami's greater age and her potential to become someday the first wife of the Khai Machi. The servant girl trotted in with a good chair, placed it silently, and retreated. Hiami halted her with a gesture and motioned to the singing slave. The servant girl took a pose of obedience and led him off with her. Hiami smiled and gestured toward the seat. Ida'an took a pose of thanks much less formal than her greeting had been, and sat. "Is my brother here?"
she asked.
"No. There was a problem at one of the mines."